The people thought I went through the middle rope. That's how much I pushed the top rope down because I was gonna make it the softest landing possible. I remember taking a trip to Amarillo, Texas in my Z28, my brother and I, and it was an ice storm. Took us about 20 hours to get to Amarillo from Houston, Texas. We got a chance to meet Skandar Akbar. He said, one day you guys come work for me in Dallas. About, I don't know, 3 months later, my brother got a tryout and I went along with it. And Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert saw my brother and I, and he asked who was I, and so that's my brother, and he was like, well, I'm looking for a tag team, and the next thing you know, we were the Ebony Experience.
You gotta give it to this team of the Ebony Experience, too. You know, these boys don't take no quarter and give none. You know, they pretty good team put together. Good-looking athletes, I'll tell you that right now.
Look at you, moves in with the hip toss.
Look at that, pretty arm drag.
I see Hollywood John Tatum in there selling for me right now. And he took one hip toss, and he's selling like crazy. But I remember talking to John Tatum before that match, and I asked John Tatum, you know, and he's such a great teacher. I said, what do you want me to do in this match? What do you want to do in this match? And he looks at me and he goes, just flop. That's all I need you to do is just flop. And I was like, all right. You know, so I just went out and, you know, listened to the veterans and got my stuff in when I had a chance to get it in. I didn't think I had made it getting to the Global Wrestling Federation. I thought it was a great start. I thought it was a great springboard. I knew we were in the right place. Being on ESPN, you know, Monday through Friday, you know, always knew television was worth its weight in gold. One day we were working one Saturday night, and we got a phone call at this sportatorium, and they said Sid Vicious is on the phone, and we were like, whoa, you kidding, right? You know, and my brother actually did the talking, and Sid was like, he wanted to get us in WCW, and, you know, we'd like to actually, you know, do that. Next 3 months, we were in WCW, and not just in WCW, but we were living with Sid Vicious. He had let us stay in his apartment when we first came there. So it was an amazing, amazing switch. You know, looking apart for me was everything. Like the outfits that we have on when we first got to WCW. That was one of my creations. Country singers Brooks and Dunn. They wore those shirts. That was the Brooks and Dunn shirts that my brother and I had on right there. I had them cut. The sleeves actually was big enough to make the hats out of. So I got a seamstress to do all of that for us. And we had the airbrush pants. You know, like I said, we didn't have a lot of money at that time, but we had to figure out and make do with what we had. And boom, that was the first edition of Harlem Heat's first outfits. Dusty Rhodes came up with the name Harlem Heat. At first it was Chi-Town Heat. We were like, it's too cold in Chicago for it to be Chi-Town Heat. You know, but even though it gets cold in New York, it just sounded a lot better, Harlem Heat. It just sounded tougher. So we ran with it. We really put a staple on going out there and beating guys up, really making the fans look at us differently than anything that they had ever seen come along before. I think about this first edition of Harlem Heat. We was raw. I look at this match right here and I still see how green we are. I still see how much more we, you know, got to go as far as learning goes, but I do see that clay that could be molded into something really, really great. But until Sherry Martel came along, that's when floodgates opened pretty much. Candy Cole was the name that WCW gave us, and I think Dusty may have had a part in that as well, in them wanting to, you know, have branding. We understood that also. But I remember my brother and I, we would do promos, and in the middle of the promo, I didn't know if I was Kane or Cole. I was like, what? And it was just messing me up. I just didn't feel it. Dusty was always in the corner of Harlem Heat, but he was always, you know, in my corner as well. He was always the guy that pushed me and pushed me. He wanted to see me do well. He's the guy that gave me more confidence as a young wrestler, I think, than anybody in the business. just because, I remember one time doing a show, and I came back through the curtain, and Dusty goes, "They won't put you on first no more." And I go, "Wow, okay." They let me know that I was doing the right thing. They let me know that, that I was pretty good at what I did, even though I knew I had to get a lot better. I was thinking about getting a lot better, but Dusty gave me that confidence when he said that they won't put me on first anymore after me going out first and rocking the house. Dusty was always my guy. He never called me Booker T. He always called me T-Book. Nobody does that other than Cody Rhodes now. Now, I remember the tag team division in WCW at that time, it was pretty hot. So for my brother and I to actually fit right in there and take that spot as WCW, #1 tag team, they looked at us as being the forefront of the tag team division. Such exciting time for my brother and I. I think before us, tag team that came along that really stood out like we did was Doom, Butch Reed and Ron Simmons. I was afraid of those guys. I was like, man, I don't want to ever have to work those guys ever in my career, but I think we were the closest things to that, and my brother and I, we knew that, being in that position and giving that shot, and this was it right here for us, having our first shot at tag team gold in WCW was a moment for me that, man, I don't remember a whole lot about wrestling, but that's definitely was something that I felt for the first time, Booker T and Stevie Ray being WCW Tag Team Champions. Becoming WCW Tag Team Champions, I felt like we had made it. Just because our start in WCW wasn't so smooth. It was really, really rocky. We lost so many matches, like going overseas matches, like house show matches. I don't think we had ever won a match. At that time. But we were doing well on television. The fans were buying us on television and did to capture our first, our tag team championship with Sister Sherry. Like I said, it never would have happened. It never would have happened without Sherry Martel being, like I say, the linchpin, the legitimizer that made us who we were. You can see it in my eyes, you can see it in my face, how happy I am. That feeling happened on many occasions, winning that tag team championship in WCW, but that first one definitely was, it was special. That was the one where you go pop the champagne and say, man, we did it. Yeah, awesome moment. It's a crazy night right now, but I see, this is the rise of me as a singles wrestler right here. This is the beginning of me, my coming out party. I remember that night, and they told me that I was going to be wrestling on Disco Inferno, and it was going to be for the title. And I was like, what are you talking about? I wasn't even in the title picture at the time, but the only reason I was wrestling Disco this night was because Rick Martel had forgot his wrestling boots. They were actually going to put the title on Rick Martel this night, and so they said, well, let's put Book in there. We can transition the title to Rick Martel later. Man, they pulled the trigger. They pulled the trigger, and I went out and won the television champion this night against Disco Inferno. And I don't think Disco Inferno gets enough credit. He's a really good worker. He's a guy that really knew his marks. He knew every inch of that square circle, and he's a guy that went out there and made me look good on this night. I tried to make him look as good as I possibly could, too, but what a moment, man. What a moment in the way I finished a bang Harlem Hangover 1-2. It was a perfect Harlem Hangover, too.
1, 2, and we've got a new TV champ!
Another title change!
How about that one?
One of my best Harlem Hangovers ever in my career. In fact, trust me, I was scared up there on that top rope. But to win that television championship, definitely let me know that, man, they got eyes on me. Man, maybe I could, make it to the next level. When the company put the title on you, just like when the company put the tag team championships on my brother and I, we felt like we were the face of the company. We were the face of the tag team division. We felt like the company trusted us to be that. Same thing when they put the television championship on me. I felt like they trusted me. I felt like I had put in enough time. I've showed up to work on time. I was always a guy that was selfish and selfless at the same time. It was never going to be all about me. And for the company to finally, pull the trigger on me from a television championship perspective, it was really, really cool. But I still had a lot to prove. It was kind of like I was an interim champion at that time, waiting on Rick Martel to come back and hand it over. But there again, like I said, I'm going to prove how good I really am. And there's no way they're going to be able to take this television championship away from me and give it to anybody else. I think I proved that because I think I was 6-time world television champion at the end of, my run. Yeah. The crowd reaction, for me was awesome. That's when I started raising the roof too. I was raising the roof, and it's kind of like Jey Uso got his yeet. Maybe that's where he got it. No, raising the roof, man, it would be like a sea of fans. I would just have to do it one time and everybody would go along with it, I think that's when I created my signature intro, where I'd come up and throw the leg up and whatnot. It was an exciting time for Booker T. I was excited that Bret Hart was coming over because I was always a huge Bret Hart fan. I was like, man, there might be an opportunity there for me to actually wrestle Bret Hart. It was a very, very slim chance that I was going to wrestle Bret Hart, I thought. But I felt like it was a chance as far as being a guy that could go in the ring and work with anybody. Bret Hart was that guy. When he came in the company, he wanted to work me. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. Bret Hart would have worked me. Like I said, I don't have a whole lot of memories about matches, but that one I remember like it was like yesterday. Just because I was so nervous that I was going to be in the ring with Bret, but I knew I couldn't be a fan at the same time. I knew I was going to have to act like he was just another guy. And I remember the first thing we did when he got in the ring was he walked up to me and I shoved him like almost as hard as I could. I don't know if I was trying to scare her or what, but I was like, back up. And he backed up and he nodded and he took like 2 steps and then we circled and then we got into it. And I remember that like so vivid. What a moment. Looking at the body language, I'm looking at myself and how much more confidence I got at this point in time in this stage of my career. How much better I had gotten as a worker.
Sunset flip attempt by Hart. Reversal, roll up 2. You beat him. We have a #1 contender, Mike.
Bret Hart came over and he gave me like the ultimate rub. He made people look at me totally different than they had looked at me before working with him. And I thank him for it. That night, I found out about 10 minutes before the match that I was going to be wrestling Jeff for the world title. I had wrestled earlier that night against Chris Kanyon. A lot of people don't even realize that. They don't even think about it or remember it, but I had wrestled earlier that night. So I was like, this is not going to happen. I remember at one point, I asked one of the agents, is it okay if I just get my clothes on and bounce? I say, because this is not going to happen tonight. And I remember them telling me, no, just stick around. Just stick around. This is going to happen. So I waited and waited and waited, and everything happened the way it did with Hogan, Russo, Jeff Jarrett. And when that smoke cleared, I was told, you're going to be wrestling for the World Heavyweight Championship. And there again, I had about 10 minutes to prepare for it.
Opportunity has knocked, and I will be damned if I don't answer that door. I am going to do what I have to do tonight to take that gold home.
Jeff and I, we just went to the ring, and what happened just happened. And wow, what a way to win your first World Heavyweight Championship with no preparation. I didn't even really feel like I was winning it actually until it happened. Until actually, the 1, 2, 3, and I got it and I just raised it above my head. I think I was the most excited that I had ever been for a wrestling match on that night. Never dreamt this match before. I never thought about one time winning the World Heavyweight Championship. What a guy to actually do it with. Not a better person I could have been in the ring with at that time, the Jeff Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett actually went out there and he walked me through that thing. He went out there and did everything he possibly could do in order to pass the torch properly to me. And I always thank Jeff Jarrett for that. I really thank Jeff for that. I didn't celebrate that night. I didn't go out. I didn't have one drink. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed for about 30 minutes. I just couldn't move. I remember going to bed that night. And I was just wondering, was the fans, really going to accept me in that position? Being a black guy and all, I was wondering if they really was going to be happy about me being in that moment. And then Monday night came, and man, everybody seemed like they partied like so freaking hard, for Booker T that night. Everybody went out and celebrated, for Booker T's moment, so they let me know that I was the right choice and, I deserved to be in that spot. It's very important, for me to try to fill the shoes of one Ron Simmons, the first black man to win the heavyweight championship in WCW, and I was like, man, now I'm falling in his footstep. A dream that I never thought about achieving, always putting myself in position for when that knock came, I was going to be prepared to open the door and accept that publisher's clearinghouse check. Cash it in, baby. Yeah, man, what a hell of a ride. Yeah, that's when I first started growing the dreadlocks. Man, but that day was just that day. It was a bittersweet day, you know what I mean? For me, I was winning the World Heavyweight Championship. I was the United States champion at that time as well. The company had been sold. There was a lot of guys in that locker room just didn't know exactly what their next move was going to be. They didn't know if they was going to have a job or not. Even though the company was closing down, I always knew that nothing lasts forever. That was just my mentality. And I was ready for what was next. I was ready for the future.
So I've got a lot of mixed emotions going through me right now, but now being the World Heavyweight Champion, the U.S. Champion, all in the same night, closing WCW, I would like to say this may be the end of a chapter. But let me tell you, there are many, many more pages left in this book.
I knew how good I was at that time. I knew that I could fit right in with what was going on in the WWE.
From this point on, I will prove that I am the best this business has to offer. And if anybody want to test me, step to me like a man.
I wasn't one of those guys that rested on my WCW loyals or anything like that. I knew I was going to have to come in there and, figure out. I always tell my students, you got to know how to make it in the locker room before you can make it in the ring. So I came in understanding that this was going to be something totally different, and I was going to have to earn my stripes in the WWE, and I had no qualms about that.
The champions, please clear the work us on aisle 2. That's aisle 2.
No, it was a simple shoot, actually. Before the shoot happened, everything was as calm could be until they said action.
Austin attacking Booker T!
This is a one-shot deal. We didn't have to do any extra takes or anything like that. We didn't have to do any pickup scenes. It was action, and we went, and we got it done. We didn't think we were creating history or anything like that. We were just doing our jobs. We were just going out. I was happy. I was, jovial. It was like a wrestling match. I looked at this like a wrestling match. I had been, getting the best of Steve up until this point. And what we call, the payoff. Payoff is, it's time to, give it back.
Oh, no, here comes the flower.
There you go. You want me to make you a count?
Nice fresh cake. No. From Stone Cold. No.
I never watched this scene right here, but I watched it about 6 months ago. Was the first time that I ever watched it. You're not gonna find too many scenes like this, you know, where the produce section is just wrecked. I don't know how much damage we did, how much money was spent after this thing was all over with. My hair, man, I had so much freaking flour in my hair, I had to go and wash my hair like 3 times that night. I think I washed all my dreadlocks out. They were just straight. It was all over with. But I swear, man, what a time. I look like a freaking ghost with all this freaking flour on me, you know, but it was just nuts. And then here at the end of it, after getting the crap beat out of me, I was still talking smack. I was still talking smack and telling him I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna get you, man. I'm gonna get you. You know, and it's like something that would happen on the schoolyard, you know, more than anything. And what a moment, man. It was one of the greatest moments in my career. When I go to, you know, conventions and I do signings and whatnot, every time. This is the highlight of the day. People talking about being Stone Cold in the grocery store. When I watched it, I realized why people loved it so much. I was crying literally the whole time I watched this. Little real tears coming out of my eyes just because I go, wow, this is some great entertainment. We went all the way out to entertain the fans and give them a moment that they were going to remember for the rest of their lives, not knowing what we were doing at the time, you know. But Steve Austin being a badass, finding himself in a grocery store fight. Booker T, which is I think I'm a pretty badass myself, you know. But this is what true wrestling is all about.
Price check on a jackass.
My first pay-per-view I was in WCW, Dustin Rhodes was there. We have had a friendship for many, many years, not knowing that we would ever, you know, be a tag team or anything like that. But I think our chemistry made it work. Our dynamic was totally different, but our thought process was, we're gonna go out here and make this work, no matter what. And then we found ourselves creating some really, really good magic. You know, not just between each other, but between him and I and the fans. The fans really love Goldust. And where that name come from, I don't even know. But the fans definitely love Goldust, to the point that when it was all over with, you looked in the audience and it was real tears in people's eyes. It was real people, real crying. And it was like, wow, you know, we really created something really, really special here. Man, we found ourselves sometimes, you know, we come to work and only thing we would have is a vignette, you know, Booker T and Goldust at the movies, you know, something like that. And I remember talking one time, we go, man, can you believe they pay us to do this? We just entertain and make people happy and, you know, make people smile, you know. And it was amazing. It was one of the most amazing times of my career being with Goldust.
I'm about to get medieval, man. Obi, but Kenobi.
You know, we never really thought about the tag titles or anything like that. We were just thinking about doing really, really good work. And I think when that happens, you know, everything just falls into place. We just want to go out every week and do some really, really good TV. The tag team championships with Goldie and I, that was just icing on the cake. I tell you what, if I did feel any way about losing, when I got the check, all of it went away. So that's the only thing I can say about that. I'm probably thinking, can I do this again next year? There's a lot of pressure going into this match, but the story for me was heavily on my mind. I was representing for a lot of people. I just wanted to go out and make sure I left everything in the middle of the ring. That's what I wanted to do more than anything. It was a surreal moment for me being in front of that many people That's the moment you say, man, I've made it. I've made it. When you're at WrestleMania in front of thousands and thousands of people, you know you've made it. I tell my students all the time that your losses got to be better than your wins, no matter what. And here, WrestleMania, I think my loss was a lot better than a lot of my wins. And even though I did not walk away the World Heavyweight Champion, you know, the street kid, you know, coming from South Park, Texas, that dropped out of high school, ended up going to prison, coming up out of there, and next thing you know, you find yourself in a world title match, Triple H at WrestleMania. I thought that was the biggest win, you know, of my life, making it to that match, because I wasn't supposed to be there. I used to watch this show when I was a kid called Cabernet. And there was these two characters on there called Tim Conway and Harvey Korman. And they would be doing these scenes, and the scene would be so good, they could not help but laugh on camera as the scene is being played out. And it brought so much to the scene when these guys did that. And trust me, every scene King Booker would do, he was laughing on the inside so hard. It was so hard to keep the laughter in. And I don't even know how I did it myself. I don't think it was supposed to be what it was. I'm almost sure it wasn't supposed to be what it was. But one thing I realized about this business, it's gonna be what you make it. And when you make it, they're gonna have to go with it. I'm gonna be the greatest king that anyone has ever seen come along in this business. In order to do that, I had to play it all the way out. I had to do something different than anyone had ever did in that role. I thought about Macho Man Savage, of course. Macho Man had the finger and I had the pinky. That was all paying homage to Macho Man Randy Savage. I had a lot of help with this thing, such as my court, Finley and Regal. They definitely accented that thing, you know, the guys that I was working, you know, at that time, Bobby Lashley, you know.
Get him over here and make this sucker kiss my feet. Do it! Oh, yes!
Batista, you know, Rey Mysterio. I was at my best as King Booker. Was I at my best as far as a performer, a wrestler? Perhaps not, but I created some of the best moments of my career. And I do think I'll go down as the greatest king of all times. Everywhere I go now, people still call me king. I mean, I was only King Booker for a year, but people still call me king. You go back to WrestleMania with Triple H, and I didn't win. And I felt like I shouldn't have won that match, because this was the timing for me. This was the right time for me to actually win the World Heavyweight Championship. If I would have won the World Championship when I wrestled Hunter, people would have been happy. And I think they would have been happy for that moment, and I think it would have went away very, very quickly. But I think here, against Rey Mysterio, I was the only one to ever win the World Heavyweight Championship as king. Because the king role was not for one to win the heavyweight championship. It wasn't one to, be, the focal point of the show. It really wasn't. It was to play a very, very small part of the show. And I went out and made King Booker not just, a great king, but the focal point of the whole show. The show was written around King Booker. I don't think it could get any bigger than that. That was something that I made happen. And I think I'm more proud of that moment than, just about any time in my career.
When did you decide that you were gonna hang up the boots for good?
And put on the old tights one more time. Oh, man, I was so freaking nervous here, man. I just came from the booth, doing the kickoff show. And what's crazy was hearing my music play, man, and hearing the pop.
Number 21 is on the way.
Can you dig it, sucker?
Yes, the two-time Hall of Famer, the voice of NXT.
You know, the crowd, like, here we go, one more time, Booker T, one more time, Spinner-Rooney, baby, one more time. Oh, you know, it was a moment for me. You always wonder, you know, if the crowd is gonna remember you. You know, you always wonder if they're gonna give you that big pop just one more time. And here we go, Spinner-Rooney. I asked God, give me just one revolution. That's all I need. If I could just get one revolution, that's all they got.
I can't wait to see this. Spinner-Rooney!
I thought about, right before I went out, I say, you know, maybe I should take one of those chops from Gunther. And that lasted for about half of a second. Like, get me out of here, man. And what's crazy was, the internet, they totally just was all over me the following day, because when I went out, the people thought I went through the middle rope. That's how much I pushed the top rope down, because I was gonna make the softest landing possible. I was like, I went over the top, what are you talking about? Right before I got ready to do the Spinner-Rooney, Sheamus was sitting in the corner. He was peeking just so he could see the Spinner-Rooney. It was like a little bitty kid watching me do the Spinner-Rooney. That's what I love about the business, I think, more than anything, you know. Still being able to have fun. WWE is in very, very good hands with the talent that we have, you know, coming up. Right now, the guys that are established, you know what I mean? Even, you know, the young guys that are just getting in this, that we're working with, and see so much potential. You know, the business is in great hands. I'm just so happy that I'm still a part of it, and I'm still contributing. From '92 to 2012, you know, getting a chance to see pretty much my life, you know, told right before my very eyes. You know, my grandfather lived, you know, to be 102 years old. He was born in 1889. And I always say, man, if I could have seen that slideshow, what would it have looked like? And now to be able to see my slideshow, it's actually a really surreal thing. So surreal, and it's such a, there again, a moment.